This is a download from BBC Radio 2. For more information and our terms of use, visit the Radio 2 website.
BBC Radio 2. Simon Mayo, 88 to 91 FM. BBC Radio 2.
It's your weekly dose of confessions.
Simon Mayo, 88 to 91 FM. BBC Radio 2.
Hello, it's time for an Olympian Confessions download. That's what this is. We've been having a concise collection of terrible tales all week from various BBC sports correspondents, and here they are in one neat package, without any Spandau Ballet playing underneath, which is a blessed relief. They include some radio rascalry, some hotel horrors, some Koreans, and a bit of sick on a coach in Atlanta. There was no alliteration available. And Mittens, poor Mittens. Here it all comes. It's confessions time. Yes, drive time confessions, Olympic drive time confessions. Here we go. We have another top broadcaster for you, another part of the BBC Olympic team. None other than Juliet Farrington. Juliet, hello, good afternoon.
Hello, Simon. How are you?
It's very good to have you in our confessional. I don't even know Sister Rebecca, Mother Superior, and Brother Matt.
Hello, Julie.
Hello, Mother
probably-
Superior.
Because you used to do Radio 2 sports bulletins anyway.
Oh, many years ago, when the days of Johnny Walker,
I remember you well, Julie.
Steve Wright's still here.
Yes, a lot of us are still here.
No one leaves.
No.
We occasionally try and escape, but it never really works.
You're
Like
still
Hotel
here.
California.
It is. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. Once you're in, you're in. That's
it, isn't
that's
it?
The way
No
goes.
way out.
What are your Olympic duties? What are you doing this fortnight?
Well, I'll be reporting from Weymouth and Portland, where the sailing will be taking place, and the big medal favourite, Big Ben Ainsley, will be going for a 4th Olympic gold medal. He's already got 1 silver and 3 golds, so this would be a 4th if he gets it, and it would be a huge achievement.
So you're stationed in Weymouth?
Stationed down there.
We're doing some shows from Weymouth as well.
I know, I've noticed. I have the dates in my diary of when you will be appearing on the pavilion.
Okay, so you're smarting up with all the sailing terminology and...
Kinda. I wouldn't go that far into it, you know, it is a little bit confusing.
So you don't, basically?
No.
You don't know anything about ships?
No, ships. They're dinghies.
Here's
not
a ship.
ships.
It's got a sail on it. They're going fast.
Little
All that
boats.
kind of stuff. Anyway, so that's what Juliet's going to be doing, but with the music up and running, here we need to do another Olympics confession. Juliet, I imagine you have a lot to confess. That's just... yeah, and Matt's nodding. So,
Yes.
I'm hoping the lawyers have gone through this.
Okay.
I really do.
Yeah,
Here
I'm
we go.
sure that's not your reputation.
Well, you know, I've always kind of been one of these people that cock things up.
Okay, well, let's hear one of them.
Join the club.
This is the one that got through out of many which were rejected. Juliet, take it away.
Well, dear Father Simon, I'm seeking forgiveness from yourself and your team for a waxing incident many years ago.
A waxing incident.
Mother Superior's got already.
Waxing.
Might be car wax. She might be waxing a car. Come on.
Oh, dear.
Together, everybody.
I'm sorry.
Automatically assuming the worst.
Yeah, we
Yes.
are, absolutely.
Well, it involved a cat called Mittens and went very badly wrong. My story goes back to a Wednesday night out in Newcastle under Lyme. Now, Wednesdays up Newcastle under Lyme were a really good night out. They may have something to do with the Stoke and Vale lads out at the same time, traipsing through the various Staffordshire drinking emporiums. And 9 times out of 10, they were rather generous with their cash at the bar. Mm-hmm. So, guaranteed, I would kind of end up with a hangover the next day, which wasn't a good look, taste, smell, whatever you want to call it when you're doing the early sports shift at BBC Radio Stoke.
All right.
But there was nothing unusual about getting ready for this particular night out. Instead, though, of going home after I'd finished my early shift, I decided to go and get a home waxing kit instead.
As you do.
As you do.
What is a home waxing kit?
Well, I'll explain.
Okay.
It involves putting wax in microwaves, heating it up, and maybe you could go for the cold version, which is cold wax strips instead. So I kind of stocked up, piled up, and I was ready to go.
Were you very hairy?
Oh, please.
Not that hairy.
Stocking up, you
Well,
know.
stocking up, 3 for 2.
Okay.
the plan anyway. So I stocked up on some waxing kit.
I'm trying not to look at her arms now.
It wasn't for my arms.
Oh, no.
The plan was to drive round to my friend's house and do it there, as we were getting picked up by taxi that night to go out up Newcastle. So I got my gear, got my wax, got my kit for the night out, and off I went to Joe's house. I had a key, so I let myself in. Now, Joe had a cat called Mittens at the time, and Mittens was in a good mood that afternoon. Don't know why, purring, prancing around, so I gave her some food, kept her happy, sort of skipped myself upstairs to get myself prepared in the bathroom. Now this, as a girl would know, kind of involved laying out sort of plastic bin bags, putting a few towels on the floor, a pillow to prop me up for comfort.
Yeah,
it was quite glamorous.
Men don't actually realise
No, they
what
don't.
we go through.
Exactly.
to
So
get to that point.
this is a learning, educational
Yeah.
confession.
This just sounds very coarse to me.
Mittens was downstairs.
Just a purity over there,
There are so many things you could say to that.
but we won't.
Mittens, she was sort of eating away, munching away. She's a very fat cat, lovely coat, beautiful, very glossy. And I thought it would be a good idea to give her some milk, sort of to keep her busy. The more I kind of thought that she would eat and drink, the less likely I would be interrupted as you're trying to sort of balance like a flamingo upstairs, pulling off strips of wax. Well, anyway, after I heated the wax up, I went off with my lollipop sticks, because you get those, and you get the strips as well. Sat down on the bathroom floor.
This is
I'm trying not
completely
to picture anything now.
What on earth is going on?
Don't ask, guys, don't ask.
And I started by testing a few areas first, just to make sure it was right.
Well, you have to do
You
that,
do,
Jen.
don't you?
No,
Yeah. You do.
Yeah, I
honestly.
can imagine that,
You
yeah.
do.
yeah.
Before gently going for it. You know, applying the cloth
Yeah,
strip,
all right, yeah.
yanking it off all one go.
I'm feeling a bit faint.
Anyway, just as I was about to pull, the cat walked in. With her tail up, purring and nudging away at my arm, as cats do when they're happy. They want a bit of attention, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't get rid of her. And more importantly, I was trying to rip the strip off to get the wax underneath.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
have you told us where you were doing this?
In the
yet?
bathroom.
bathroom.
The cat
No.
came upstairs.
That's all you need to know.
What part of your body?
What do you
Stick with the
think?
bathroom.
Get on with it.
I am. So after a few breaths, I went for it. So did Mother Superior. And I ripped out the hair. The trophy was in the hand.
Right.
Bob's your uncle. But there was a problem, because as I pulled the wax strip, I pulled another piece of delicate skin at the same time. So I was in absolute agony. And I don't know who was more traumatised, me or the cat, because as the strip I ripped off was now hanging off Mittens' head. So Mittens now had the wax strip attached to her head.
What?
Well, yeah, I was hurting too. I was quite sore. But,
I think I might pass out.
so, and you know what cats are like when they get a bit traumatised? They panic, don't they? And as she tried to run off, she got her paws stuck in more wax and strips. So she had like blobs of wax on her little paws and a used wax strip stuck on her head. So we were in kind of a right mess. I was sort of walking around like John Wayne, trying to find this cat. She was one under the bed, hiding and sort of frantically using her paws, as cats do. I don't know why I'm demonstrating this is radio, to try and get the strip off her head with her little paws. And if she wasn't doing that, she was nibbling away at the wax on her feet. So I was trying really hard not to laugh, but I was in tears and agony as well. Anyway, I decided the only way I could get the strip off her head was to cut it off with, like, scissors and stuff, and then smooth it over with a pair of clippers that I found.
So take off a little bit of fur.
Yeah, well, not just take off a little bit of fur. I took out quite a few clumps of fur. And she wasn't going to cooperate or help me, so she was growling at me and sort of scratching me at the same time. But I kind of think I did a good job, because there was a few lumps of fur missing and nothing that wouldn't grow back eventually. And I got a little bit more baby oil and took the wax off her paws. So she was like quite happy in her feline world, and so good she flipped and flew through the cat flap of freedom away from me, so I couldn't hurt her anymore. So the cat was sorted. I went back in the bathroom, cleaned everything up. No way I was going to continue. Half job. But it also meant I had to change my outfit as well, because I couldn't wear any tight clothing.
Yes, okay.
So I had to borrow some clothes.
Okay, skip a bit.
I kind of wore one of Jo's dresses, and she kind of came home rather surprised to see me in them. So I explained that I'd spilt coffee down my top and my jeans or whatever. And she didn't really notice that the cat was missing because I sort of plied her with wine and makeup and hair and everything else. So that was that. We went uptown, had a good night. The next day, Mittens reappeared, looking a little bit worse for wear, a little bit shaven, bald look. But I managed to convince Jo that Mittens had got into a fight with another cat. And so it wasn't my fault and that the cat would be okay. So I'm seeking forgiveness, Father Mayo, for a temporary loss of fur to Mittens and shaving her head.
Well, I think that's one of the worst things I've ever heard.
Did you not realise that women have to
Yes,
actually wax?
yes, but...
You just don't think about it, do you?
Well, why would I?
Because to be sympathetic,
It's just
some
not-
empathy with the opposite sex.
It's just not necessary. Get on with it. What do you think?
I think, Juliet, you obviously didn't intend for this to happen.
No!
You could have locked the door, though. You could have locked the bathroom door. I mean, it was a kind of half-hearted attempt to keep the cat busy, wasn't it? What did you do?
But
Give him some food?
Give him some food and milk,
Because
but
you
why would I
knew
lock
that
the door?
cat was a potential issue and a danger. Anyway, I think the point is you didn't do this on purpose, and you did clear up the mess afterwards.
Oh.
And even though you didn't admit it, I suppose no long-term harm done to the cat, so you're forgiven.
Oh, the superior.
You boys are so out of your comfort zone, aren't you? You have no clue. Have you never waxed your chest, Simon? Have you not?
What? Just say what you have to say.
Well, really, honestly, he's so scared. Julia, I think that's one of the funniest confessions I've ever heard. I thought it was brilliant. And I don't think that the cat... I mean, I feel very sorry for you and the fact that he probably got a bit of stumping on his head. But listen, you are totally forgiven because you just made me laugh a lot. And sorry, boys, but that's life. We make ourselves smooth for you.
But don't bring us into it.
Yeah,
Don't...
I'm feeling very grateful to be male right now, not having to go through that every time. Juliet, when I found out you were going to be doing one of these confessions, I had a number of stories racing through my head, and I think we've probably got the one that did get past the lawyers, which is good news.
There's worse?
None in my wildest dreams did I think we were going to be doing one involving waxing, and I have some pretty wild dreams. So I am definitely going to forgive you, Juliet, because that was a storming story and made me feel a little weak. So well done.
Yeah, I'm not going to forgive you at all. I think it was...
On purpose?
I've just come over a little strange, that's all.
Will you
Oh,
ever
I
look
say.
at lollipop sticks the same
I
way
don't-
ever again?
I still haven't worked that bit out.
I don't want
Have
to
you
know.
worked that bit out?
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Juliet Farrington, thank you very much indeed. Have a lovely time in Weymouth.
I'll try, Simon. I look forward to seeing you.
Well, I'm just going to look the other way for you. Hang on, Mother Superior's gone already.
it!
Why are you laughing?
Sorry, I'm just imagining Gordon quaking in his boots at the other end, and that the organ comes in, makes it worse.
Gordon, welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Are you quite nervous about this?
Not at all.
What does being Olympics correspondent mean, by the way? What do you have to...
You have to correspond about the Olympics. It's the clue's
nice.
in the title.
Yeah, I know, but you've been doing it for years.
The great thing about it is you never quite know what's coming next because it's a varied cornucopia of delight. And one day you might be reporting on a drug story. The next moment you might be being dispatched to see if we might win a bronze medal in a Taekwondo 48-kilo women's category thing. So there is never a dull moment, it's got to be said. It's enormously rewarding and I love my job completely, which is why I'm saying this now before you hear what's coming next.
Okay. Are you slightly scared?
I am ever so slightly because this is quite an embarrassing story. I'm going to be honest with you.
Okay. So tonight's Olympic drive time confession comes from, what's your official title?
Olympics correspondent.
Olympics correspondent and sports news correspondent, Gordon Farquhar. Go ahead.
Dear Father Simon and the Pardoning Collective, sometimes things don't go quite as you planned them or hoped that they would, do they? Now, in 1996, I was fortunate enough to be asked to cover the Atlanta Olympics for the BBC's World Service. It was my first taste of the Olympics, and I'd been entrusted with the task of reporting on the swimming events. Now, this was a huge opportunity for me as a young-ish and ambitious-ish reporter at my first Olympics. Now, as it turned out, there were a great number of stories in and out of the water, heroic and unexpected gold medals, not British, doping suspicions, tension amongst the US team as their star names struggled to get going. I dived in, feet first, not literally because they would have removed my accreditation, giving it everything, in what on reflection were some quite difficult working conditions. Now, I know quite rightly there's not much sympathy for those of us who moan about how tough it is to be sent to these fantastic sporting events, but this was a bit of a killer. Our hotel was 30 miles out of town at the end of the media bus route. The hideous traffic jams meant leaving no later than 6:30 to be sure of getting to the aquatic centre by the start of the heats around 9 o'clock. By the time the evening finals were over and the wretched bus had chugged back via the tortuous route to our hotel, surely the only one in Atlanta without a restaurant or a bar, it was pushing midnight. The food at the venue was vile, scabby sandwiches, greasy burgers and evil coffee, and for someone who quite likes his tucker and his refreshments, this was on the whole quite rubbish. Now, after a solid week of this routine, early starts, late finishes, jam-packed days, bad food, the final race had been swum, and for the next 24 hours, I was a free man. Several of my colleagues covering other sports on similar punishing schedules were also in a bit of a frazzled state, so our team leader, sensing mutiny, declared that we should have a night off. Oh dear. Oh joy. Proper food. Never had a seared tuna steak tasted so good, or the Californian Chardonnay, lightly oaked, gone down so well. Very nice. On something of a roll, it obviously seemed rude not to head to a bar afterwards for a vertical tasting of the local microbrewery beers. Fat and happy, cream-crackered and amply refreshed, we eventually made it back to the hotel. It was probably quite a rowdy 5-up ride home for the taxi driver, but it's not from him that I seek forgiveness, as I'm pretty sure we gave him a tip. No, the need for forgiveness came the morning after. When I got back to my room, I found a note had been pushed under my door saying I was needed in the office first thing to go to an urgent press conference due to start at 9 o'clock. Now, this was not ideal news to receive at 02:30, with the floor annoyingly lightly tipping sideways and with a prospect of no more than 4 hours sleep to come. However, heroically, I set the alarm just before slipping into the drink-induced heavy sleep, the kind where the alcohol and fatigue combined dictates that you will A, go to sleep with your clothes on, B, fail to drink enough water, C, wake up with breath that would stun a monkey at 30 paces. And the headache... Oh, the headache... Somehow, I made it onto the 6:30 bus. I sat at the back, as had become the habit, in order to allow a group of even more cream-cracker than I was Korean broadcasters who got on at the first bus stop every day to manhandle their cameras and lights onto the front row of seats and then lie down across the middle rows. Taking my cue from them, I slumped down and shut my eyes. Things seemed to be still revolving. However, sleep was not to last long, interrupted as it was by what I can frankly only describe as acute and sudden nausea of the projectile kind.
Oh no.
Surprised, dismayed and embarrassed, all at once I surveyed the scene. Pebble-dashed. Only after having children
Dear.
have I become since obliged to confront the prospect of removing something so comprehensively scattered. I did my best, I really did, but armed with only one bottle of water and a newspaper, there was a limit to what could be done. At the final bus stop, which mercifully came soon, I tiptoed past the still oblivious Koreans, clutching as much of the evidence as I could, and scarpered. Did I mutter sorry to the driver on my way out? Well, I would like to think so. I attempted to rescue what was left of my dignity by buying a new pair of shorts and a shirt from one of the street traders at the Transport Mall. It's the Coca-Cola torch relay, I've still got it, and chucked everything else in the bin and toughed it out for the rest of the day. So now to my apology. Well, it's partly to the bus driver, but that's mitigated by the fact that the media transport was the worst ever provided by an organising committee. Honestly, it's true, ask anyone. My apologies partly to my colleagues for putting in what must have been an abject shift that day, but it's mainly to the snoozing Koreans for having to wake up in, well, that. It was unprofessional. It really was deeply unprofessional, and it failed to live up to the World Service motto of nation shall speak peace unto nation. I have to say, it looked more like a preemptive nuclear strike. I'm sorry.
Oh, my goodness me. I mean, if that hadn't been from our Olympics correspondent, I'm not sure we could have stomached that, as indeed you couldn't. Well, it's a shocking story. I have to say, I mean, I'm not sure if this is the kind of thing that we could say, but your nickname, you do have a nickname, called, which is the Brigadier. Because you have a military bearing and people look up to you. But I'm afraid after that story, I'm not sure if you're...
You salute the rank, not the person.
Yeah.
OK, so it's Gordon Farquhar's confession and it's Sister Rebecca to go first.
I have to say, I feel really sick after hearing that, and that nausea has been rising for some time.
You've never done that on an OB, have you?
I've never vomited before an OB. Gordon, you brought a black mark onto the BBC by your behaviour. However, having said that, I'm sure many journalists have done exactly the same thing. And good on you for soldiering on, in a way. I mean, you could have just slept through the alarm and not turned up. So much as I feel sorry for the Koreans, I think, you know, they were adults, they can handle a bit of vomit, speckles. So you are forgiven, Gordon.
Bless you.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. You haven't actually made it feel any nicer by saying that last thing. But listen, I mean, you know, speaking as somebody unlike Rebecca, who has, you know, thrown up on several occasions, listen, you only had the one day off, didn't you, Gordon? You had to do something with it. What were you expected to do apart from go
Play drafts?
Well,
Read a book?
exactly. You know, a man's got to play a bit when he can. So I had got every sympathy that you wanted to go out and have a great time, and it wasn't your fault that you didn't know that you had to be up some ridiculous hour the next morning. As for the vomiting across the Koreans, I just think that happened. I think possibly you could have said thank you to the driver. If you didn't, that wasn't very good.
No, it would have been poor, wouldn't it?
Very, very poor. But on the whole, even though you're a sports reporter, I forgive you.
Oh, well, that's very kind.
Very magnanimous.
Indeed.
Brother Matt.
I'm doomed now.
I have lost count of the number of times Gordon has criticised the transport infrastructure at the 1996 Atlanta Olympic Games, and I think now we're beginning to realise why. One wonders about the bias here. The other thing I'd say is, frankly, I've got no sympathy for people who take up more than one seat on the bus. And frankly, anyone who does that has got it coming to them. So if that ended up being pebble dashed with bits of Gordon, then I'm all for it. Well done and totally forgiven.
I feel as though maybe because I don't normally get to forgive or not to forgive, but as I'm clearly not involved in the telling of the story, maybe I can.
Yeah, no, I think you should.
Well, I'm inclined not to forgive you, Gordon, purely because if you're stuck after a couple of hours and there's a swimming thing to report on, isn't that what Bob Ballard is for?
Yeah, what happened to Bob Ballard?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
Bob, I think, is probably still doing his bit. I think nobly and honestly, as a good chap that he is.
Yes. Well, okay, fair. Did you call him and say, Bob, could you just stand in
Fill
for
in?
me?
Because he would have done, you know, Gordon.
Almost certainly would have stood in for me, not on the bus at that moment in time, though, I think.
Okay, it's a very good story. And Gordon, we thank you very much indeed for telling your Olympics confession. Are there any others, by the way, or is or is that it?
That's the only one I could get past compliance, Simon.
Okay, all right. Well, we wish you a happy and busy and a gentle stomach throughout the entire Olympic Games.
Stop now, Simon.
I've learnt my lesson, I have.
Gordon, thank you very much. I think my hunch is the love for Gordon, which he's built up over the years as a sports news correspondent and Olympic correspondent, will carry him through.
I think so, yeah, I think he'll be fine.
Let's just hope we don't get many Koreans texting him.
Yeah, or he's sunk.
The music is up and running. It's time for another Olympic confession. Which of the BBC's commentary stars do we have lined up for you today? How would you describe this man, Matt?
I'd describe him as very tall. I'd also describe him as one of the best football commentators we've got.
But not just football. Oh, no.
No, he does many things.
Equestrian, but genius particularly. It's John Murray. Hello, John.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, it's fantastic to have you on the programme. You're equestrian.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I have mentioned this before, but John and I sat next to each other in Hong Kong at the Olympics 4 years ago as we went through dressage and other entertaining sports, didn't we, John?
Yeah, it was a one-off spectacular, never to be repeated.
So what are your Olympic duties this year?
Olympic duties this year revolve around the football. And I'm a good deal more comfortable doing that than I was the equestrianism.
How disappointing. I thought you could do sort of open water swimming or something like that.
I am, though, to counter that, also doing the ceremonies right at the start and right at the end. So I think that'll be the test this year.
Well, John, the Confessional Collective are here, and we have Sister Rebecca, Mother Superior, and Brother Matt, who's donned his robes. It's unfamiliar garb, I know. But we're here, we're sitting. I personally can't believe that you have anything to confess, because you just seem like a thoroughly decent kind of gentleman. So we'll wait and see where you take us with tonight's Olympic confession. Take it away, John Murray.
Well, I am quite ashamed by this, but here we go. So, Father Simon and the esteemed collective who are sitting there, some years ago, when we were moving away from London back to the north of England before buying a place, we rented a house in a village very close to an American Ministry of Defence spy base, which is a significant fact to remember for later. Now, over a long period of time, I and my work colleagues had always wondered, as I'm sure you do as well, about the rather mysterious system of compiling radio listening figures. And we always speculated that if, in the unlikely event we ever were selected to fill in one of the fabled listening diaries, what a dramatic effect it might have on our own audience figures.
That's very true.
Well, one afternoon I was at home on my own in our rented house when there was a knock on the door, and I opened it to find an elderly, kindly-faced lady who, lo and behold, asked if I would have the time to fill in a radio listening figures diary for the next week.
I think you had the time.
Well, as you can imagine, scarcely able to believe my good fortune, I invited her in. And as I plied her with tea and biscuits, she explained she would have to take down a few details. Not a problem, I said. What do you want to know? And off we proceeded to go through the formality of filling in her form. But all I could think of was the prospect of a set of soaring listening figures. And all was very straightforward until, right at the end, she breezily delivered the question, and of course, neither you nor anyone in your family works in the radio industry, do you?
Oh dear.
And before I knew what came over me, the word no had slipped
John.
straight out of my mouth.
John Murray.
I know, I'm absolutely ashamed and appalled. So what do you do? She then asked, to which I immediately responded, I'm afraid I can't tell you that. And she looked at me knowledgeably, and with a glance out of the window in the general direction of the local spy base, said, yes, I quite understand. And she tipped me a knowing nod and a wink. And that was that.
Wow.
The interview was over, the tea was drunk, the biscuits were eaten, and after explaining that she would be back at the same time next week, she left me standing in the doorway, diary in hand, contemplating the consequences of my barefaced lie. And as soon as my wife returned, I explained it all, and she immediately confirmed that there was no way the diary could be filled in, as obviously, should this ever come to light, as it is doing now, I would be sacked on the spot. So I spent a week fretting, and then on the day she was due to return, I left the empty diary on the doorstep in a plastic bag with a note of apology explaining that I had remembered that I did indeed have a close member of my family who worked in the radio industry. A very close member. And when we returned in the evening, the bag had gone and we never heard anything of it again. So obviously now I need to ask for forgiveness for telling this shocking lie, for wasting the kindly lady's time, and for misleading her into thinking that she'd been rubbing shoulders with some kind of unlikely James Bond figure. And
Well,
that is it.
Yes, well, and a fantastic story it is too, John. Thank you very much indeed. John Murray's confession, how he lied, but only he didn't complete the lie. He didn't go through with the lie. And
And obviously, Simon, since then, from that day to this, I've never ever told another fib or a lie in my life.
Were you not just tempted for a second to go, yeah, 5 Live, or wherever you were turning up, Radio 2, obviously, and were you not tempted just for a moment?
No, I wasn't. So I'm afraid that's just how it worked out.
I think you were.
It was a weak moment, I
I think you were, but then your wife came home and suddenly everything changed. Sister Rebecca, what do you say to John Murray?
Well, thank goodness for the wife who spoke sense, and thank goodness you listened to her, speaking of sense. I was going to condemn you, but the fact that you actually, at the end, decided not to submit the form
I saved
means
myself.
that you saved yourself. I am interested, though, John, does one form really make a difference to the listening figures? I find that quite astonishing. I mean, how many do they use?
I suppose if you ticked every hour of every day
I suppose,
for a week, it
but then
probably
nobody would have believed you, wouldn't they? Anyway, I think, luckily, you made the right decision at the end to confess. But you didn't actually admit all, did you? You said someone in your family. You still lied a bit.
Yeah,
in fact,
it's
it was
true.
it was you. But anyway,
Don't change course now.
No, I'm not going to change course. I stick to my guns, and you are forgiven.
Thank you very much.
Mother Superior.
Well, John, I mean, there's a couple of things I want to say to you here. First of all, what a wuss you are. You could have actually sat down. It's not lying. You could have filled it all in. You could have... And you know what? I'm surprised that she didn't actually recognise your voice, because I know nothing about football. I never watch it. I never listen to it. But I do know your voice. It's very familiar. So I'm surprised that when she spoke to you, she didn't guess what you did. But I still think you're a wuss, because I think you could have actually just taken it on board. You could have followed through on what your dream had been, which was to actually put down all the lovely things about the station. Was it 5 Live that we're talking about?
It almost certainly would have been.
OK, you should have put it all down, and you should have...
It would have been really funny if you filled it in with Classic FM.
Well, I just think you should have done it. I think to wuss out like that was not a good thing. I would have thought that you were a real man if you'd have done that.
Well, I now feel chastened
Well, yeah, you should have
come
done
on
it.
Radio 2 and be repeatedly described as a wuss.
I'm sorry. And your wife, obviously, wears the trousers.
She's the moral centre of that house, and that's no mistake.
So on that basis, I'm not going to forgive you.
Brother Matthew, then.
I'm obviously going to forgive John because
I knew you would.
Yes, because morals of a sewer rat. Yes, but it does remind me that there's a guy I know who works for a TV production company, and the TV figures have always been something of a mystery as well as how they're gathered. And he went on holiday to the Outer Hebrides. And the landlady that he was staying in the hotel, or this guest house, she had one of those boxes on her TV that basically was recording which programmes she was watching. And he said, could you do me a favour and always watch my show? And that way the figures will be really good, and because his show was really suffering. And so she said, yeah, no, that's fine, yeah. She said, I'll tell you what, I can ask the 2 people down the road and they'll do the same, because they've got the boxes as well. And this guy couldn't believe his luck. So I think definitely, John, I actually go along with Mother Superior on this. I think you should have followed through, frankly. But then you'd have risked losing your job, and we would have lost all your amazing commentary over the years.
Yes.
So you probably did do the right thing.
And I would have been destitute, of course.
Obviously,
Yes, and you might have lost Mrs. Murray, apart.
Mrs. Murray might have gone as well. So I am going to forgive for that reason.
And I shall forgive you as well, John, for being a thoroughly decent guy and an upright and a very upright pillar
Very
of your
upright,
community.
yes.
Community. Can I ask you, are you actually a spy, though?
No, I can rule that out. But there again, if I was, I wouldn't tell you, would I?
You're not allowed to say, are you?
Yeah, well, I just think if there, of all the people that I met at 5 Live, I reckon the most likely spy is John Murray.
He's too tall to be a spy.
It's all that international travelling that does it.
Well, that could
That's
be
the
Bob
giveaway.
Ballard. Bob Ballard could be a spy.
Anyone could be a spy.
Oh, dear.
John, it's been fantastic having you on the show. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I feel truly exonerated.
Yes, it's time for another one of our Olympic confessions, featuring some of the BBC's finest Olympic voices. The collective are here. Sister Rebecca, Mother Superior, Brother Matthew.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And now, Ali, it's just good to have you on the show because, Ali Mitchell, because normally you're in, you do official work for us.
Normally, yes.
But today you're very welcome and confessing.
Well, I'm glad to be welcome. I'm not quite so glad maybe
Where-
that I'm confessing.
What are your Olympic duties are what?
Artistic gymnastics is my main event.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Which is one of those events that we're interested in every 4 years.
Well, and hopefully in between when we get the odd world champion like Beth Tweddle.
Yeah,
It should be very exciting.
She is absolutely extraordinary. When she's on the bath, is it the bath?
She does the asymmetric bars, that's right. That is her prime event. And she's quite good on the floor as well. But the bars, very much her thing.
So it's Ali Mitchell's confession, and we're kind of intrigued because when I listen to you broadcast, I think you sound pretty perfect, and I can't imagine...
I'm very straight.
I can't imagine that there's anything too ghastly in the Ali locker.
Well, we'll see
Okay.
how nasty or otherwise it is.
Just
not,
before we
not
go any
very.
further, Matthew, I just want to ask about what's Ali's reputation in the sports department?
It's a very good... It's a saintly reputation. So I can't believe that
Up
anything
there with
we're
Ian
gonna hear
Carter?
now. No, far worse than Ian Carter.
worse than
Ian Carter, believe me.
Okay, all right. So, Ali, over to you.
Well, Father Simon and your kind-hearted collective.
We'll see.
Several years ago, I was on a girls' holiday with 3 friends in Italy. We were all close pals. 3 of us had been to school together, and the 4th was from university. We were staying in beautiful hotel apartments on the Amalfi coast, looking forward to a week of sun, sand, and relaxation. On one particularly hot evening, after a few hours of sunning ourselves on our peaceful balcony, we started getting ready to go out for dinner when we realised we were running low on bottled water. So we duly dispatched Leanne to the nearby shops while the rest of us carried on the process of getting all three of us through the shower and ready to go out. What happened next we didn't learn about until some 30 minutes later. Leanne got into the lift to head down to the ground floor. She was on her own in the lift, which wasn't the biggest space in the world. As the lift descended, it came to a juddering halt. The doors didn't open, it was stuck. And not being someone who enjoys confined spaces, this induced a momentary panic in Leanne. Not thinking clearly, she didn't look for an alarm button, but reached instead for her mobile phone to call one of us upstairs. None of us heard our phones ring, though, because they were either switched off or left on silent. The momentary stress was becoming a more sustained panic, so she rang her dad back in the UK. He tried to reassure her. He called the hotel, then called her back to say, "Don't worry, it's all right, the fire brigade were coming." Well, that made the panic worse. The hotel must have been on fire. Now convinced she could smell smoke, Leanne flung herself onto the floor of the lift and as the temperature rose, started stripping off her clothes in her distress.
Has she got a few problems?
She didn't before this incident.
Okay, carry on.
She started sweating. She screamed out for help. The panic worsened. She was down to just her bra and knickers, lying panting, petrified as to what would happen, screaming sporadically to be helped.
I say.
Then suddenly, the lift jolted. The doors slid smoothly open as if nothing was wrong, and from her prostrate position sprawled on the floor in her underwear, she looked up into a sea of faces, holidaymakers and hotel staff, peering in at her from the hotel lobby, waiting to see who had been stuck in the lift and making all that noise. There had been no fire, just an electrical malfunction that had halted the lift, all of about 3 inches from the ground floor. It had lasted maybe 10-15 minutes, but to Leanne it had felt like hours. By now, in tears, as much due to excruciating embarrassment as her earlier fear, she was left to crawl out of the lift and pull on her clothes to the bemusement of fellow guests and to some considerable concern of the hotel staff. She staggered back up to our room and poured out the whole sorry story to her fellow roommates, who hadn't even answered her calls of distress in her hour of need. Well, what we couldn't bring ourselves to tell her then, and haven't until now, was that minutes after she'd left the room to head to the shops, I plugged an industrial-sized hairdryer into an already overcrowded plug socket behind the dressing table in one of the bedrooms.
Aye.
It had the effect of seemingly tripping the electricity and causing something of a power blowout in the hotel. Now, it hadn't lasted long, but I had caused that lift to shut down. I had caused Leanne to think she was going to die naked in a lift in Italy. I caused what she still describes as the most fearful, panic-inducing moments of her life, and I haven't even had the courage to tell her.
So she doesn't know until now?
She doesn't.
What I can't... It's a great story. What I can't quite work out is why she thought that, dying naked. How did the naked... Why did taking her clothes off help in any way?
It was obviously some sort of extreme panic attack where she felt the lift was getting hotter and hotter, whether that was just her imagination because she thought the hotel was on fire. Just the panic of being shut in a confined space made her rip off all her clothes.
All right, okay.
Not something I would have done.
What does Leanne do?
She is a lawyer.
She's a lawyer. Okay, well, so Leanne the lawyer...
So she's going to be suing quite soon then.
Very
Excellent.
good. The story of Leanne nearly dying naked, and it's all because of Ali Mitchell. That's the shocking thing, Sister Rebecca.
The thing is, Leanne is a lawyer, so she's obviously very highly intelligent, and she was having this conversation on the mobile phone with her father, who said, "I'll do whatever I can to get you out of that lift. I'm going to call the fire brigade," and that's why she thought the hotel was on fire. I mean, that
Yes,
seems
she
a
did.
little bit thick, as Matt would say. Sorry, Leanne. So I think,
Yeah, Leanne.
Okay, you managed to cause the electrical short circuit, whatever, but you didn't do it intentionally. And really, Ali, if that is the worst thing that you've got to confess, off to a nunnery with you is all I can say.
Why didn't you just say, "I'm sorry, it was my fault," and if I hadn't plugged in my hairdryer?
You really had to have seen her extreme distress. It was quite a serious thing. I think it was a proper full-on panic attack, and we just couldn't bring ourselves. At that moment in time, it required sympathy and a hug, not for her to hear that it was all our fault.
I bet that when you were asked to do a confession, you knew exactly the one that you were going to do, and you knew it immediately, Mother Superior.
So how long ago did this happen? Was it... how long is it, until this confession?
Well, I said several years. It was only actually 3 years ago.
Well, that's an awful long time. I mean, I can understand your reasons for not telling her at the time, but to leave it for 3 years is a bit rich, I think, and I think that's a bit naughty. How do you feel about that?
I feel very guilty now, Mother Superior. Don't really mind before.
I do actually have a parallel story, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. I was once almost naked in a lift myself. Yeah.
Yes,
Stuck-
but
no, I'm sorry. I just thought I mentioned it, but I can't go into detail. Anyway, I think that
On your own?
I'm not going into details.
Obviously with people.
I think that, you know, it's not your fault that you tripped the entire hotel system. I mean, but I do think it's your fault that you've left it 3 years to confess.
Yeah.
So I think that's a bit. So I'm kind of on the cusp of wanting to forgive you or not. For the actual incident, I forgive you, but I don't forgive you for not telling her for all this time. So what does that mean, Mr. Judge and Jury over there?
It means you're tough to please, Mother Superior.
I know,
That's what it means.
I think I've had my wrist slapped.
I think, yeah, but here's Brother
Very
Matt.
much so.
Our continental cousins and their dodgy voltages.
They've got bad plugs, let's be honest.
Yes, frankly,
Well, we had overloaded it a little bit.
to sort out the plugs.
Lack of continental adapters on our part.
Indeed, yes, it's all down to the Italians. I have a rule that if we ever have a confession that involves someone stripping down to their bra and pants, that they always get forgiven. So I'm going to say definitely forgiven in this. I thought it was a great story, Ali Mitch, and I wouldn't have confessed either. So well done.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, well, I think it's rather good. It's an excellent confession. Trapped in lift confessions, bra and pants confessions.
Yes, please, lots of those.
No winner.
I think you should be forgiven precisely for the, you know, if they can't be bothered to put an earth in their plug socket, then frankly they deserve everything that they get.
Hear, hear.
Thank you.
If they have a proper pin socket, like what we have,
like the Brits,
then this wouldn't have been a
An
problem.
unusual intervention from Mr. Simon Mayo.
I feel as though
making a decision.
I feel as though I can just in this case.
And Leanne still has nightmares about it.
Really?
Yes, really.
Oh, right.
Excellent, Leanne. Well, Ali, thank you very much indeed. An excellent confession. If you have a lift-based confession, a bra and pant-based confession, a lawyer-based confession, or an Ali Mitchell-based confession, if you know more about Ali, feel free to tell us.
Or not.
Confessions at bbc.co.uk. That was it. If you enjoyed it, guess what? There's another one next week.
Thanks for listening to this BBC Radio 2 free download. Now, why not try more?
Jazz for me, I guess, is improvisation.
My pick of the best in rhythm and blues.
Music from Richard Thompson, Chris Wood and Pentangle, amongst many, many others.
All at the BBC Radio 2 website.